Hello there, my name is Luisa Diaz and this is my infomercial. For my infomercial, I decided to do the topic of alcohol. So we're starting off with alcohol in society. In the United States, an estimated 126 million people reported being current drinkers of alcohol in a 2005 survey. From these people, around 55 million people participated in binge drinking at least once in the past 30 days leading up to the survey. So obviously we can see that drinking is very prevalent in our society. Uh, uh, as well as underage drinking. So underage drinking does remain widely popular. Reason for that is that as a society, we have a misconception of what alcohol really is. A lot of the times alcohol is essentially used as a social lubricant, and so the perception is that it's a way to unwind and a way to relax, a way to socialize with other people. And so this perception makes us a little more vulnerable to alcohol dependence, essentially because we don't view it as we view other drugs such as marijuana or heroin or cocaine. So here we're talking about the immediate effects of alcohol. So once we start drinking, some of the immediate effects are lowered inhibitions, which lead to poor social judgment. Poor social judgment can lead to a plethora of consequences. There's an increase of STDs, for example, because it sometimes leads to irresponsibility when it comes to sex, as well as DUIs. We've seen a lot of drunk drivers lately. There's also skin flushing, loss of coordination, slower brain activity, sleepiness, and mood swings. Although at first glance these effects don't seem like they're a big deal, they can definitely have higher consequences than we expect. So here we're talking about alcohol absorption, and this diagram here from the book Drugs in Society kind of displays how alcohol is absorbed throughout the body. We can see that alcohol is consumed orally. From there it goes into the stomach, and then in the stomach it transfers over to the bloodstream and some of it also to the small intestine. So we can see there that the alcohol goes into the small intestine and then it's absorbed into the walls of it. We see also that alcohol goes into the liver, and so there we see the process called oxidation, which is when the liver changes the alcohol to water, carbon dioxide, and energy. And then finally, we can also see that alcohol goes to the brain almost as soon as it is consumed. Now moving on, here we're talking about binge drinking. So binge drinking refers to consuming more than 5 alcoholic beverages in 2 hours, and this raises your blood alcohol content to 0.08. Now binge drinking can also lead to alcohol poisoning. Signs of alcohol poisoning include confusion, irregular breathing, seizures, and memory loss. It could even result in death. So it's essentially pretty dangerous. And then here we're talking about physical effects due to excess drinking. So a lot of people don't really think much about this, but there's also a lot of consequences that come with it. So we see that alcohol shrinks the brain. And so this leads to memory, mental illness, and learning worsening over time. We see there's a higher degree of liver disease, high blood pressure, stroke, and other chronic diseases. There's a risk of nerve damage, sexual problems, mouth and throat cancer as well. So now here we're talking about alcohol and college students specifically, just because alcohol seems to affect college students especially. As we can see, young adults aged 18 to 22 enrolled full-time in college are more likely to consume alcohol than their peers who are not enrolled full-time. In addition to this, about 1,825 students between the ages of 18 and 24 die from alcohol-related unintentional injuries, and then about 1 in 4 college students report academic consequences from drinking, such as missing classes, falling behind, and receiving lower grades overall. We can see now that alcohol doesn't just have immediate effects, but these effects can have potentially lasting ramifications in our education. Now, alcohol isn't just about the individual, it's also about the social consequences that come with it. So, according to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, drunk drivers account for over 31% of all driving fatalities in the US. Not only this, but alcohol and violence are correlated. Between 1997 and 2008, alcohol was responsible for up to 37% of crime. There's also the increase of domestic abuse. And so regarding domestic abuse, this isn't just physical abuse, but there's also a lot of verbal abuse going on, and there's also negatively impacts any children in the household, because a lot of the times children that come from alcoholic parents are neglected, they grow up unattended, and so this isn't just bad for the households, but for society as a whole. Because ultimately, how are we to function if we're having all of these different problems at our households? There's also the issue of financial strain, because obviously alcohol is pretty expensive. And so that's especially a burden for like lower income families and communities. So as we can see, alcohol does not just affect the individual, and it's not just a way to pass the time. It's very easily to fall into that kind of pattern and then engage in binge drinking, which can ultimately lead to all of these different consequences. And for this reason, it is important to be cautious of it. Now, here's my list of references. Thank you for listening.